Hey everyone, my name is Chris M. Walker. Over the last 10 years, I have had the blessing and benefit to have found the SEO industry and have it absolutely change my life. I started Superstar SEO, which is a global SEO brand that focuses on SEO training, services, consulting, clients, and software. And I've grown one of the largest SEO Facebook groups and built a huge community around SEO. And that eventually led me to creating Legiit.com, which is an online platform to help businesses and individuals get the tools, services, and training they need in order to accomplish whatever their goals are. And I cannot tell you how grateful and blessed I am to have benefited from SEO and the life it has provided me and the ability it's given me to help so many others to grow and become the kind of person they were meant to be. So what I wanted to do today was put together this training for you, this presentation on SEO, search engine optimization, that's going to take you from a really high level view of what SEO is and all the way through to the end on all the different things that you need to know to begin doing SEO or to advance your SEO skills and career if that's something that you are interested in learning. This is going to be an in-depth presentation, and it's going to cover a lot of high-level concepts and a lot of introductory concepts. So no matter where you are in your SEO journey, I think you'll benefit from it. I think it's going to provide you a lot of information that will help you. And of course, we're here for you if you want to learn more or get some more help with SEO or anything. But my real goal with this presentation is to give back to SEO what I've gotten. For the last 10 years, I've gotten so much out of SEO. And I could not have done it without people helping me like this. And I just want to, pass that on. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. This is what is SEO, what is SEO marketing, an overall view of how SEO works and what SEO is. And I think it's going to really benefit you. So check it out. Leave your feedback in the comments and let's dive right into it. Okay, so we have a lot to cover, and I just want to briefly cover the different sections that we're going to go through. Again, this is what is SEO, and it's this kind of, I want to call it a beginner's guide, but it's going to be a really big overview of some of the main parts of SEO and what you can do to get started and what it entails. So first up, we have what is SEO. Okay, so the first section is going to be just a general overview. What is SEO? Then we're going to go into some of the core elements of SEO that you need to know in order to be successful at it and have a complete understanding of it. Then we're going to talk about black hat versus white hat SEO. Neither of those are bad or good. They're just different types of strategies that we'll talk about. We'll talk about how does SEO work. So you want to understand how it works if you're going to do it successfully. We'll talk about a little bit about HTML, which is the language that much of the World Wide Web, what most of us think of as the internet, is written in. We'll talk about technical SEO, which is exactly what it sounds like, the more technical aspects of SEO. We're going to talk about Google's EAT guidelines, and I'll explain more about that when we get there. We're going to talk about SEO marketing, and that's going to be kind of a summary. We'll have an FAQ at the end with some frequently asked questions and then some final thoughts before we wrap it all up. So let's go ahead and get into it because we do have a lot to cover. So first up, what is SEO? SEO is, and again, you probably already know this, but I want to be as basic as possible. SEO is short for search engine optimization. That's the process of taking a website or another property and optimizing it so search engines, primarily Google, understand what the website is all about, and so they can rank it for keywords that will benefit you. A keyword is any term that you put into a search engine. That was confusing for me when I began. I thought a keyword was literally one word, but it's the phrase that you put in. So in the example pictured there, Pizza New York is the entire keyword, but it could also be something like how to lose weight or what's the best chainsaw under $200 or whatever. But whatever you search for is the keyword. Ultimately, the goal is to make your property, whether it's a website or a video or something else, show up higher, so it'll get more traffic to the website, and that helps you either grow your blog or your audience or your business or make more sales or whatever it is that your particular goal is. So in this example, like I said, we show Pizza New York, and you own a pizza delivery restaurant or a dine-in pizza place or a takeaway pizza place in New York City. Now, and what you want is more people to buy your pizza. So in order to do that, you need to show up as highly as possible when people search the term Pizza New York. Now, imagine every time someone types in Pizza New York or takeaway pizza in New York or New York City pizza takeaway, something like that, and yours shows up at the top, I think it's pretty easy to understand that you are most likely going to be the one that they call, visit, click on, whatever. What's interesting in this example is that the results are not from New York, so that's some of them need to do some work. But you can see that that's kind of the concept, right? Is to show up, to optimize your website. Let's just use website for the rest of this training as the example, to show up as high as possible, so you're the one that gets the click, the phone call, the website view, the visit, the whatever, or the sale. Moving right along, you need to understand a few things. So we need to understand how Google works. So in order to optimize your website so it will show up higher for those terms, you got to understand how it works. Then we're going to talk about what the ranking factors are. There's some primary ones that you need to understand so you can be the pizza place that shows up at the top. And then you need to know how to optimize your website for those ranking factors. Once you put all of those together, this becomes it doesn't become simple, but it becomes easy. So hopefully as we go through this, you'll understand what you need to do in order to make that work for you. And so you can be the pizza place or whatever it is that shows up at the top. Let's talk about some of the core elements of SEO. We have on-page SEO. Now, on-page SEO refers to everything that literally happens on the website or the page that you're trying to get people to visit. So in continuing our pizza example, that's literally on the home page or the page specifically for New York and New York pizza. Everything you do on that page, changing the text around and linking over to other pages, whatever, that's on-page SEO. That's what I say when I mean that. Some of the things that are important for that are to write high quality content that helps the searcher. So, you want to explain how great your pizza is and how it's valuable. Well, I mean, everybody knows how pizza is valuable, but how your pizza is better than the pizza place next to them, things like that. You want to optimize the HTML components like meta tags and titles. We'll talk about that later. And then you want to, and there's strategic ways to do this, but for now, just understand that you do need to have the keyword on the page somewhere that you're targeting in certain places throughout your content. Now, the next one up is off-page SEO. Off-page SEO, where on-page SEO happens on the website, off-page SEO happens off the website. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but there's a few different things here. It's seeing how your content is performing on social media, and then what type of links to your website are linking to your content. We're going to talk about links later, but linking is one of the most important and most powerful parts of SEO, regardless of what you may have read or heard elsewhere. This is what separated Google from other search engines in the beginning, is that they used links as a rank factor, and they still do, but it has to be done in the right quality and in the right way. So off-page SEO is crucial. It's probably the biggest of the three factors, but that's what we mean when we talk about off-page SEO. Primarily, we're going to be talking about links, although social media and other properties do matter as well. Then finally, we have technical SEO. Technical SEO is fixing internal things on your website, like the speed. The speed is somewhat of an SEO factor, but even if it's not, it's important to keep your users on the site. Site structure is very, very important. So you want to lay out the site in a way that Google understands, so they can more easily understand. Your job as an SEO in doing SEO is to make sure that Google understands your site as possible. So for example, in our pizza example, you wouldn't talk about I don't know, what's another type of fast food, hamburgers, and expect it to understand that your site is about pizza, if that makes sense. Broken links are another big one that you want to look out for. That's links that are on your site that don't go to anywhere, or they go to places that no longer exist. Things like that. There's a lot that goes into technical SEO. We're not going to go too deep into it here, but those are the kind of the main three core elements of SEO: on-page SEO, off-page SEO, and technical SEO. So let's continue on. Now, you're going to hear terms called white hat SEO, black hat SEO. Sometimes you may hear gray hat SEO. And I want to be very, very clear. Neither of these is right or wrong or good or bad. It's just a couple of buckets that people have decided to put them in. So doing quote unquote white hat SEO just means that you're following all of Google's guidelines and never breaking the rules. This is nearly impossible to do because anything you do with the intention of increasing your search ranking is technically against Google's guidelines. They tell you to just make great content, and that's how you rank. So even if you optimize, your H1 tags and stuff for SEO, technically that's makes it no longer white hat. So that's kind of what we mean by that. Now, black hat SEO is doing things, the opposite of that, basically, and not being afraid to break the rules that Google and other search engines have outlaid for you. It's not 100% clear what goes into what bucket, and everybody has a different opinion. So just be aware of that. But almost any link building activities are technically black hat, although they're really just there because they work. A lot of so-called white hat SEOs actually still even sell links on their site, or they get links in other ways intentionally, like they trade them or whatever. So just be aware of that. A lot of people will swear that you should never touch any quote unquote black hat techniques because Google will come to find you and ruin your business and penalize your site. And you have to do really bad to get penalized. So I wouldn't sweat this as much as people will make you think that you should. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't risks. There are, but just don't let the label throw you off is basically what I'm saying. So, and you can also be a gray hat SEO, which is kind of an in-between thing. So what I and some other SEOs like to do is kind of mix all the techniques, right? So we like creating great content because it is important. No matter how much traffic you get, if your content sucks, it's not going to generate leads or sales or whatever it is that your goal is. So great content is important, but I also want to get results. So if great content alone doesn't get me there, link building should. Now, everything should be ethical. It really should. And ethics, is something everyone has to define for themselves, but I think some of it is pretty obvious, don't mislead people and things like that. But Google is not the internet. They don't own the internet. They're not the law. So do what works, but don't do it in a way that harms other people. And by link building, to be clear, I'm not talking about spam using software or anything like that to spam thousands or even millions of links a day. I'm talking about high quality links coming from relevant, authoritative sites, news sites, blogs, whatever, that will help Google understand what your site is about and increase your ranking so your pizza place shows up above everyone else's. And remember, this is your website and your client's website. What you do is your choice. Google doesn't own the internet. They don't write the laws. It's okay to do what works as long as you're not harming anyone else in the process. So don't follow the most extreme black hat techniques, but don't let some guideline by some giant tech company tell you what to do either. Now, some techniques I don't recommend are hacked links. This is where you illegally access someone's site without their permission to build a link out from it. Negative SEO is where you build bad links to your competitor's site. This doesn't work that well anyway, but you still shouldn't do it. And hidden links, where you write links in all white font so the users don't notice. Things like that we all instinctually know when we're doing something wrong like that, so just don't do it. A lot of white hat versus black hat debate is fueled by white hats using it as a sales tactic, to be perfectly honest. It's their way of, well, we'll just leave it at that. We'll want to be good natured here. So moving right along, how does SEO work? So, like I said, one of the essential parts of SEO is great content. Now, the content has to be written in a way that search engines understand, but people respond to. So that's kind of a tough balance to strike sometimes, and it gets a little tricky. But the trick is to write content that will resonate with people and make them engage and buy and do whatever it is that you're trying to do. But also search engines understand and know that what your site is about, so they know to rank it for those terms. So quality in SEO content doesn't just mean that it's well written. It means the formatting in the content is done in a way that's easy to digest. One thing I found is that if you have a paragraph that's more than 2 sentences, people won't be able to read it properly. I know that goes against what we're taught in school, but I do a line break after every 2 sentences, regardless of the grammar rules, because people scan, they don't read, and they won't be able to scan more than 2 sentences in a paragraph at a time. You want to understand the problem that the searcher is having and address them and or entertain them. So if somebody says how to lose inner thigh fat, you want to address that for them. If you don't want to talk about how to how to lose fat in your neck or in your belly or whatever. You want to talk about specifically what exercises and types of food and supplements you can take or do in order to lose inner thigh fat specifically, because that's something that they're searching for and that's a problem that they have. And if your content can answer it for them, they'll either buy your product or come back to your site. So that's very, very key. Next up is checking out the content is performing well from your competitors. There are tools out there that can help with this, but basically you want to, when you have picked a niche and you have an industry or whatever, or a search term, a keyword that you want to rank for, go look at the other sites that are winning, meaning they're already ranking, see how their content is laid out, what pain points they address, and do not copy it, but use that to help decide how to structure and write your content so yours will do well as well. You can also use a keyword research tool to see what keywords they're ranking for and include them in your content to quote unquote steal their traffic. And what I mean by that is you'll find out what they're doing and do it a little bit better, and that way you'll outrank them and get the traffic that was going to them. So that's what I mean when I say steal their traffic. You're not literally stealing anything, but you are basically letting them do the keyword research for you and then just doing it a little bit better. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually implement some of this. First up, we want to talk about on-page SEO. We talked about how important it is to write great content that will resonate with your particular audience, but it's also important that your content is optimized properly so people will find it, because no matter how good something is, if no one sees it, it doesn't matter. What's the analogy about if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it still make a sound? Now, using your keyword in certain places on the page to ensure that Google understands what your content is about is very important. There's strategies that go into that, and it's a bit beyond the scope of this presentation, but you want to use it in the heading tag, the H1 tag, if we're going to talk about HTML here in a little bit, but H1 and H1 through, I believe it's 6, are what are called heading tags. And that's what helps Google understand what a website is about, along with how you format your content. If I was to give an essential on-page SEO checklist of the very basics, I would consider these the main ones. The keyword in the title of your content, that's often going to be the H1, not necessarily. It just depends on the way your web design is set up, but that's generally it. So continuing our example, if pizza New York is your keyword, then that's what you want your H1 or your title to be. Next up is keyword in one or more of the alt tags of images. I don't know if you've ever gone to a website where the images weren't working, and you can see the text behind the image. If you have, that text is the alt tag. That means what shows up when the text that shows up when the image isn't there. But it's also able to be read by Google, so they know what it's about. So in our example, we would put a picture of either our storefront or of a pizza, and we would put Pizza New York as the alt tag. Another one is you want a keyword variation in one of the other of the subheadings. So the top one would be Pizza New York, that's the H1. Then the next one could be an H2, which is a little bit smaller, and say something to the effect of where to find the best pizza in New York City, or something of that to that effect. Next up, you want to ensure the content fits the user intent. We're going to talk about this again later, and we've already talked about it a little bit with the inner thigh fat example, but you want to make sure that what is on your page is what they search for. So if they're looking for a solution to a problem, you want to make sure that your content offers a solution to that problem. Otherwise, they're going to do what's called bounce, which means they're just going to leave your page. And obviously, that's the opposite of what we're looking for. We're going to talk about keyword density, which is a section we're going to cover in just a minute. So I'll move on from that. And then there's a tool if you're using WordPress. WordPress is a website builder. It's the most common one on the internet, and it's probably, at least in my opinion, the easiest one to use. And the way that you extend functionality of WordPress is through pieces of software called plugins. And these plugins make it do other things that it doesn't natively do. And one of those is the Yoast SEO plugin. So for example, and we use a different example in the text here, but if we're going to continue our pizza example, for example, if the keyword you want to rank for is Pizza New York, you can actually put that into the plugin and it'll tell you where to use the keyword, if you've used it too many times, not enough times, and a whole bunch of other things that are very, very helpful to help you understand it. And if you look, you can see some examples of it there. This is a free tool, and it's something that if you're just getting started, and even some of the most advanced SEOs I know still use it. So it gives you some great suggestions. It's not 100%. It's a tool, not a replacement for thinking. So that's an important thing to understand, is that any SEO tool is just that, a tool, but it is very valuable. So if you're doing SEO on a WordPress website, use the Yoast SEO plugin, and it will really make your life a lot easier. So now let's talk about keyword density. There's a lot of debate about this. I'd like to, if I had to put a number on it, I would go from 0 to 1.5%, but it really depends, because if you get up to, let's say, a 3,000 word article, 1.5% ends up being a lot. So use what's already working as a guideline, but if you're unsure, then start with 0 and work your way up until you rank. So that's the easiest way to do it. Now, again, this is something I could make a whole presentation on and go from there, but for the most part, have it at least once and then just increase it as needed and use either these two numbers as a guideline or what's working for the sites on the first page as a guideline. Keyword density means the percentage of the text that is the exact keyword. So, for example, if we had 1,000 words and we used the keyword Pizza New York 10 times, that would be a 1% keyword density. So I think you get why that could get cumbersome if you get a really long page, right? Because if you have a 4,000 word article, you'd be using it 40 times, and that's excessive. So use your judgment, look at what's working, and if you want to see what's working really, really easily, I suggest using audit.io, which is a tool that I own, but you can use it for free, and it'll tell you what the top 20 results are doing and give you the averages and let you use that as a guide. So that's another way to go about improving your on-page SEO. Freshness. Google doesn't want to show their users outdated content. So this is why I don't like to use the year in a lot of my titles and my articles. So best red toaster, let's do this. Best pizza restaurant in New York 2020 isn't going to be something that's interesting to users. Even though if nothing has changed, you still want it to be updated. So regularly update your content as much as you can. Now, not to the point of doing it every day or anything like that, but anytime there is a significant change, you want to update it. And it always depends what you're writing about, of course, because certain things are never going to change and certain things are going to change frequently. So think like a human and do what makes sense, but don't let your content get stale. Otherwise, it's going to get, at best, it's just going to not be interesting to people. And at worst, it can make your rankings drop. Now, creating quality content is, again, could be a video all of its own, and maybe we'll do that in the future. But some of the steps to it are to break up your text with white space after every sentence or two. I covered that a little bit already, but it's really, really hard for the human brain to absorb more than 2 sentences at a time. So do that a lot. Use headings, those H tags we talked about, H1 through H6, and you can just use bold text as well. And images to break up your text, because again, people don't read entire articles, they scan. So the more what I call anchors that you have to break them up will make it easier for people to absorb and stay on the page longer and hopefully do what it is that you need them to do. Then you can use bold, italic, caps, and other things like that to make certain parts of it stand out. If something is important and you want to draw the eye to it, that's another great way to do it. As are bullet points and unordered lists. That's a great way to break out data so people can kind of jump to the important parts and read that. And then just make it actionable and make it stand out. What I mean by that is just make the important parts of your content easy to read and easy to understand so people can get it, read it, absorb it, and do what you need them to do, because otherwise, what's the point of this? That's the whole point of SEO, is to get people onto your website and make them take an action of some kind, whether it's filling out a form, making a phone call, making a purchase, whatever. So let's move along because we still have quite a ways to go. Here's some simple tricks. First of all, there's different types of content. Informational, so show examples and include detailed personal stories. So if you're running what's called an affiliate site, and we'll talk about that later, but it's a way of monetizing your website. And you're reviewing products. Suppose you have a juicer that you want people to click on and buy, so you get a commission. Talk about how you were overweight and you needed a way that was sustainable to get your health under control and lose some weight, and show some examples. And talk about how you found juicing and you bought this juicer and you were able to juice your meals and you lost 50 pounds in 6 months, something to that effect. So the personal stories really, really keep people engaged, keep them on the page, and keep them more likely to do what you need them to do. It also shows how they can do it too and be more confident about it. So you relate that personal story about how you found this juicer that helped you get your health in control and lose weight and do all these things. They'll be like, I can do that too, because they see, look at me. They see you, just a regular person like them, and you did it, so can they. Another thing is commercial content or copy. You want to include what are called unique selling propositions and personal stories. So you can get a juicer from anybody, but you want to show why this particular juicer is better than all the other juicers out there. And you can tie that back into your personal story on how to do that. So I tried this other juicer and it wouldn't chew through the carrots properly, and it just didn't get as much juice out of it. And then I went up to the Awesome Juicer 3000 and I put in my carrots, and it created this really good tasting juice, and it helped me feel full and energized and lose weight. So you see how that's a unique selling proposition about your juicer versus the other crummy juicer, and you used a personal story to do it. That's another great way to make your content stand out. And then you have to understand your customer. So every niche and every industry and every subgenre all have their own slang and terminology and jargon that they use to describe things. Understand who the person coming to your site is and talk to them in the way they're used to being talked to. So a good example of that is that photographers were a type of client I used to work with heavily. And for them, it's really important that you not refer to the things they take with their camera as pictures. They are images. That's I don't really get it, to be perfectly honest, but that's very, very important to them. Things like that make a big difference, and it's what will make them stay versus go. Another thing is understand their problems. I'll go back to the inner thigh fat example. People that have that, maybe they have trouble walking, maybe they feel embarrassed, they're afraid to wear shorts or a bathing suit or a bikini or something like that. Understand what the problem is when you're writing your content, and write to address that, and then figure out how they want to fix their problems. Because continuing that example, I think we all know that the solution is diet and exercise, but most people, those are hard. So you want to find ways to present a solution to those problems in a way that they will actually take action on. So maybe you bought this juicer, it helped you lose weight, and your inner thigh fat started to disappear too. And that makes it seem like you have a magic solution rather than just doing the hard work of diet and exercise. So those are ways that you can write copy and content that will engage people, that will rank, and that will sell if selling is your objective, which in most cases it probably will be. And then beyond that, you want to get the basics right. And this should probably go without saying, but we're going to say it anyway. But you want to make sure your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, and things like that are all right, because it shouldn't, but that will put people off really quickly, and it's an easy thing to get right. You can use tools like Grammarly and Yoast and others to make sure that stuff is right and in the right place and things like that, to make sure that it's right. And you can also use tools like Microsoft Word or what's the Google one, Google Docs, and things like that. You want general readability to be right. We've talked about this quite a bit, but you want to use short sentences, and you want to break them up into paragraphs of no more than 2 sentences, because people will scan, and they will, if they have to think too hard and use up glycogen, they're going to go somewhere else. So that's another thing that you want to get absolutely right as often as you can, and there are tools out there that can help you. Moving right along, let's talk about keywords. Getting the keywords right can make or break your SEO success. So we talked about pizza in New York. If you had a pizza place in New York and you put in pizza place in Poughkeepsie or Schenectady, that wouldn't work. So you want to make sure that you're using keywords that people who want what you have will use to get to you. So that's important. There's lots and lots and lots of keyword research tools out there. I have some other videos on this channel that you can watch to learn about them, but some of the big ones are SEMrush. Keywords Everywhere is one that I like that's not listed here. We have Ahrefs, Mangools, Longtail Pro. Find one that you like and use it and work for you, but there's a ton of them out there. So, and remember, don't rely entirely on tools. Use your brain and your knowledge of the industry and the niche a little bit, but these will help you uncover some other keywords too. So some keyword metrics that you need to understand is search volume. Now, this one can be misleading, but ultimately search volume is the average number of searches that a particular keyword gets in a month. So if the number is 500, that means on average, 500 people are typing in that keyword every month. And that means that you have the potential to reach 500 people. It doesn't mean you're going to get 500 clicks. In fact, you definitely won't. But it means that there is traffic there and people looking for it. I say that this can be misleading because a 0 doesn't mean that no one's looking for it. It just means that there's not a lot, but those can be some valuable keywords under certain circumstances. So I just want to add that note as we continue on here. Next up is CPC, or cost per click. Now, what this is when people buy Google ads, the way they generally pay for those ads is they pay X amount of dollars per click. And that means that there's value in it. So the higher the CPC, the more valuable the keyword is, at least in theory. However, the higher it is, generally the more difficult it is. So the sweet spot, and we're going to talk about difficulty here in a second, but the sweet spot is a high CPC, a high search volume, and a low difficulty. So those can take some research and some time to find, but if you can find something that hits all three of those, you are going to be in a great position to really, really make some good traffic for yourself. Keyword difficulty, the tools all have their own score for keyword difficulty, and they all are very different. So this is something you're going to have to kind of learn on your own, or just get used to one tool and how they rate difficulty and figure out what it does, how that relates to the effort that you have to put in to rank for it. But don't take any particular keyword difficulty as gospel, because I've easily ranked for hard keywords and I've struggled to rank for easy keywords. So those are at best an estimate. So just keep that in mind as you go on. Next up, let's talk about finding keywords. There's different types of keywords. And these terms they vary. We'll just put it that way. There are short tail keywords. These are keywords that have like one or two words in them, and they're nigh impossible to rank for. And even if you did rank for them, they might not do what you think they do. So, for example, if you have a crypto blog, you're not going to be able to rank for the term crypto. I mean, maybe, but it would be very, very expensive, time consuming, and difficult. And even if you did, it's such a high top of the funnel keyword, and that's a bit beyond the scope of this, but that just means very early in the stage of interest that it might not do you that much good anyway. So they can also be brand names. So for Coca-Cola, for example, a short tail keyword for them would be Coca-Cola. So that's what a short tail keyword is. They have their place, but as far as finding keywords, they are usually not where you're going to be. You want to look for what's called long tail keywords, and that would be something like, how long does a transaction take on Bitcoin, or something like that, continuing the crypto example. And I know I'm jumping all over the place with examples, but I'm doing that because I want to hold your attention. But those are going to be easier because there are more words, it's more specific, there's more intent, and it's just going to be less of a fight and be more profitable for you. Now, there are other exceptions to this. There are going to be things in between the two. So best crypto coin might be an example of something that's in between the two. I don't know crypto space that well, but my point is these are the things that you look out for. A long tail keyword that meets the other three criteria we talked about, a high CPC, a high search volume, and a low difficulty, would be really, really great to find. So those are some things to look out for, and we can do other videos on keyword research, and I have some on this channel, but that's just one way to go about it. Another thing you want to be able to do and you need to be good at is analyzing competition. I already showed you audit.io, and that will audit the on-page of all of these sites in the top 20 results for any particular keyword. That's a great tool to start with, but then you can also, like we talked about earlier, quote unquote, steal your competitors' keywords by using tools like SEMrush, the tool on the left, and Ahrefs, the tool on the right, to see what keywords they're ranking for, then see what ones they have that are easy and try to beat them at their own game. So basically you're letting them do the keyword research for you. And then you can use these tools to find out that information and steal their keywords. So that's another thing to do. Next up, let's talk about search intent. Now this is important because search intent means what someone that puts in a particular term is actually looking for. So I used the example, if you are writing a piece of content, if somebody searches for how to lose inner thigh fat and your site talks about how to lose neck fat, that's not search intent. A search intent would be an article that tells people how to lose inner thigh fat. Google only ranks sites, well, I wouldn't say they only rank sites that satisfy the user intent, but that's the ideal situation, is that they will, that the sites that rank best answer what the user is looking for. And Google has gotten very good at this. You're going to find exceptions where the ranking sites don't answer it, but in general, you want to make sure that your content satisfies the intent behind that search term. Google over the years gets better and better at this, so that's good. But even if that weren't the case, it doesn't do you any good to not answer someone's question because they're just going to leave. So another thing is informational content. So There's difference between informational, transactional, commercial, buying, whatever. Informational is like we continue talking about how to lose inner thigh fat. That could just be a nice blog post about the different exercises and foods you can eat and how you can go about it with no particular call to action of any kind. You know, you're not asking them to buy anything. You're not asking them to sign up, subscribe, give your email, anything like that. That's informational content where you're just giving information. Transactional is where you have a site that makes them buy something. So best red toaster in 2022. And then you have, you know, an e-commerce site that sells red toasters. That would be transactional. Your content is there to make them buy something. There's nothing wrong with that. And then there's kind of the in-between, which is buying, where they're looking at content that may direct them to buy something. So you continuing that best example, best red toaster for 2022 could have a lot of different like review information about that toaster. Tell them the ups and downs. You know, it toasts better for the piece of bread you put in the right slot or something like that. Basically, they're looking to learn more about a product before they transact and buy it. So if I had this to do over, I would switch the position of those two. But ultimately, your content should give them, this type of content gives them information that will then lead them to buy, because you're priming them to buy, if that makes sense. Next up, there's their selection. The keyword has to have value to your business. So what would benefit your business? What benefit would your business enjoy from ranking here? Is it brand awareness? Is it leads? Is it sales, etc.? I've mentioned that a few times now, but you know, every page should be, well, not every page, but every page will be designed to make them do something. Is it to just make people aware that you exist? Your homepage can do that. You know, Mario's Pizzeria. Is it leads? You know, a realtor might need leads on people looking to sell their house or something of that nature. Sales would be, for example, an e-commerce site that sells red toasters. You know, your goal there is to make a sale. The keyword has to have value to your business. So if your goal is to just make people aware of your brand, you wouldn't talk about the best red toaster. If your goal is leads, you wouldn't have a pay here on that particular page. If your goal is sales, you wouldn't have just information. So make sure those things kind of gel together. And then from there, the amount of competition is reasonable. If there's millions of businesses trying to rank for this, is it worth it? So, you know, what happens in this industry a lot is a particular niche will get hot, and then everybody and their brother will go after it, and there will be too much. It'll make the juice won't be worth, to continue our example, the juice won't be worth the squeeze, because you're going to have to work really, really hard to get results, and it may or may not be profitable for you to do so, especially the competition on the first page. So understand how hard and how intense the competition on the first page is. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to start talking about HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It says here that it's a coding language. The nerd in me wants to point out that it's a markup language and not a coding language, although you don't need to understand the difference. That's just the IT degree in me speaking. But you can use tools like Yoast Seo to edit code without any coding knowledge. But, you know, if you use tools like WordPress, you're not going to have to do a lot of this, but you do need to have a little bit of understanding of it, and there are going to be some places that'll be beneficial. Some of those are your snippet, and Google will pull in some of your HTML code that you can set through the Yoast Seo plugin or other plugins of its type, and use it to create a snippet in the SERP. SERP stands for Search Engine Results page. So basically the page that comes up whenever you search for something. Every search result has a snippet, and it's what the user sees when they type something into Google. So for example, if you type in Superstar SEO, which is one of my businesses, you'll see a snippet that looks something like this. You can see the title, the URL, the description, and some other things that are there from some plugins that I have. So that's the main thing we're going to be focusing on, although not the only thing. So let's continue on. There's a lot to cover here. Your title tag will usually, Your title tag will usually be pulled from the post title. It says blog post title. It could be a page title. It could be a blog post title, whatever, but it'll usually be pulled from that, but you can and you should set that in Yoast or whatever SEO plugin you use, because it'll be more likely to stick there, and that's an important ranking factor. So what I like to do is use the exact keyword I want as the title, because I want to make it as easy to understand for Google as possible. With the Yoast SEO plugin that we talked about earlier, you can actually customize it without changing your title, but I personally suggest putting it in both. And again, you always include the main keyword you're targeting in that meta title, because that's one of the most simple ways for Google to understand it. And if you don't, sometimes Google will change it on you. So that's worth noting. You can also customize the meta description. That is this portion here, learn how to grow your digital marketing business and so on. That's pretty important too. I like to put the keyword at the beginning of that and then the first sentence of the paragraph, because I find that if I do that, then Google won't change it on me. So those are that's the most important ways to configure your snippet with Yoast SEO or Rank Math SEO or any of the others that are out there, all-in-one SEO. Next up is Schema. Now what Schema is this is a bit more advanced, but Schema is a type of code that you can put in your posts and your pages to help Google understand what it's about. There's a lot of different kinds of this, but there's like article schema and local business schema and FAQ schema and lots and lots of others. It's important not to go overboard with this, but having this will help Google understand your site tremendously. It's a specific subset of HTML tags that search engines can pull and in some cases display in the search results, so users get more information before clicking. It's one of the smaller parts of SEO that you shouldn't obsess over and go overboard with. But if you can do this and get it right, and we'll maybe do another video on this, but if you do this and you get it right, it'll really give you a very powerful ranking boost. It's important to help Google understand your site, and Schema is another way you can do that. Alt text we talked about before, but this is basically you put in things that describe the image and you try to work your keyword in at least one time. So Google will understand what the image is, what your site is, and just what everything's about. Because again, that's our goal, is to make Google understand what we're talking about. The URL slug is the portion of the URL that comes after .com/. So if we're talking about Mario's Pizza and it's pizza in New York, it would be mariospizza.com/pizza-New York. That would be the URL slug. That's another place where you want to get the keyword in there every single time, because, well, every single time that you can. Some situations it's not necessarily possible, but that's an important ranking factor also. Having the keyword in the URL is an important ranking factor. If it's not already in the domain, the way you do that is in the URL slug. Now let's talk about technical SEO. Technical SEO, we mentioned it earlier, but it's things like site speed, it's like broken links, it's things that make it easier for Google to crawl your site and understand your site. So for example, Google crawling content basically just means finding it. It has a tool or a piece of software called a spider that it sends out to the internet that crawls around the web like a spider, and it reads your website and your attached content and understands it. It uses a ton of crawlers to go through the web and find everything for its search engine, and then it indexes the pages it wants to show, meaning they can be found through Google search. So sometimes you'll hear what an SEO, a search engine optimization professional, talk about getting their page indexed. That's what they mean, is they want it to be in Google's index so that people that search can have the potential to see it. It doesn't mean ranked, that's a different thing, but you want to get it indexed, and making your site easier to crawl is a big portion of that. Things that you want to do are make sure that your page's internal linking structure looks clean, meaning that when one page links to another, it makes sense. So you wouldn't link from a page about pizza over to a page about motor engines or something like that. So you want to make sure that it flows through the site in a way that's easy to understand. You want to make sure that you don't have any what we call orphaned pages. That means a page that has no link to anything else on the site, because Google will never find it, or is unlikely to find it because it can't crawl through the site to find it. So basically, there's no road to that house. It's a bridge to nowhere type of thing. Make sure you don't have any broken links. So maybe you had a link to a page and then you deleted that page. Then that link is what we call a broken link, a link that doesn't go anywhere. So you want to either remove that link entirely or point it to the new page. Another way you can make it easier for Google to crawl all the pages is by submitting an XML, which stands for something markup language. I forget what the X stands for, extended maybe. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But it's basically a map on your site that's easy for Google to read and get a picture of your site. Think of it as when you go to like the mall, you have those "you are here" type of things, and then you can kind of see all the different directions you can go to find the different stores. An XML sitemap is the website equivalent of that. So that's what an XML sitemap is. Most tools, including Yoast Seo, which we've talked about, build those in for you. So make sure that you have that turned on and that they make sense. Some other things that you want to look into for your technical SEO is duplicate content. As the name suggests, it's when content on two of your pages is the same. This could be a canonical issue, but you don't want to create the same page over and over again because you're going to confuse Google. Now, it doesn't, despite what other people are going to tell you, it does not penalize you for duplicate content. So duplicate content is content that is on your site more than once. You don't want to do that because it's going to make it harder for Google to understand. And despite what some people are going to tell you, you're not going to get a penalty for it, but only one will rank and they'll end up fighting. So it's just not a good idea. So avoid having duplicate content on your site whenever possible. Econonicalization is when you use the same piece of content on other sites that you own. So maybe you make a blog post on your site, but you also put it on Medium. What'll end up happening is you won't tell Google, if you don't do canonicalization properly, then Google's not going to know which one you want to rank. And because Medium has more authority than your website, your Medium is going to end up ranking. So you want to consider that when making your content. And then just in general, it's best to only use one piece of content in one place one time. Unless we're talking about syndication, that's a little different, where you have some things that will post out your content to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever. That's syndication. That's a little different. As long as you only put a snippet and you link back to the main post, then it's usually fine. Next up is mobile friendliness. The most of search traffic, at least according to the statistics, is done on a mobile device now, whether it's a cell phone or a tablet. So you want to make sure that your website shows up nicely on mobile. And in fact, they prioritize mobile search now. So you need to, and this is done in the web design process, but you need to make sure all of your pages on your site are mobile friendly. That means they show up on a device. That means that they don't spill over into off the screen, and they load properly on the majority of devices, things like that. So a good web designer or developer can take care of that for you, and there are some tools that will help with it as well. Page speed is another one. Google wants good user experience, and a fast site is important for that. There's lots of different ways you can do it. It's not as easy as some people make it out to be, and it's not as hard as others make it out to be. But there are tools. Google has their own page speed tool. There's GT Metrics, there's Pingdom, and there's others that will tell you how fast or not fast your site is. Do those and take some of the suggestions, and then you can use tools like WP Rocket, which is another WordPress plugin, or Cloudflare to kind of help make them faster. The next thing is HTTPS and SSL. This is basically a security protocol that will show, depending on your browser, it looks slightly different, but it'll show either a little lock or that the site is not secure. It's important that you get this installed, especially if you're going to be doing any kind of transaction. But really, in this day and age, everyone should have this on every site. Most hosts come with it for free, and if they don't, there are free options out there. But essentially, this certificate It's like I said, it's easy to get, and once you have it, you'll be hosted on HTTPS, and people will trust your site a lot more and be more likely to use it. And like I say, it's free, it's easy to install. There's a tutorial on this channel on how you can do it. So just do this on every site because there's no reason not to. Then some other things that you can do to improve your technical SEO are run a technical SEO audit. There are tools like Sitebulb and Screaming Frog and others that will help you with this. Or you can use the Legiit dashboard to get this done. But this will help you identify whatever issues there are with your site, whether it's broken links, whether it's the website is slow or the structure is wrong, whatever it may be. And again, most tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs have this, but I would prefer for this to use Screaming Frog or Sitebulb or the Get More Stuff Done dashboard. And then, like we talked about sitemaps, but this is important too. There's also an HTML sitemap, which is slightly different than an XML sitemap. These used to be a thing that websites had. For those of you that remember websites back in the 90s, they would have these to help people navigate the site. Now it's there to help Google understand the site even better. So there are plugins that will generate this for you. So just have one and let it be there and let Google do the rest. Don't overcomplicate it though. Get a simple checklist and follow the audit. Follow the steps in the audit and the checklist. And once you get to that point where your site loads fast, it's mobile optimized, it has a good linking structure and good overall structure with the sitemaps and things like that, SSL, then just move on to the next step. Some other things to think about are your hosting. If your site is still not loading fast after doing the other things that we talked about, upgrade your hosting. My favorite for WordPress is called Flywheel. I think the website is like Get Flywheel or Go Flywheel. But basically that's it. It's specifically for hosted WordPress. They have great support. It's cheap. It's fairly cheap. It's easy to set up. And that's my favorite, but use whatever you like and just get good hosting that is well supported, has backups, and runs quickly. You want to fix canonical issues. We talked about this before briefly, but you want to make sure that you are telling Google the right page for the right term. And that's kind of how canonicals work. That's a bit beyond the scope of this, but again, Yoast settings, just add the URL in the canonical URL field, which will let you choose which page is the original. Then you want trust. Google wants to show its users reliable results. Therefore, SEO takes a long time because you do have to build up trust. And some things to look at are authority. And when I say authority, I don't mean a metric from a third-party tool. I mean, is your site an authority? The way a doctor is theoretically an authority on health issues, or an accountant is an authority on accounting issues, your site needs to be an authority on whatever it's about. You want social media profiles. These are really, really important for SEO now because they build out what's called an entity. That's a bit more advanced, but basically it helps Google understand that you're not just a website, but you're an actual entity or business that's out there. Bounce rate is the percentage of people that go to your site and then immediately exit without doing anything. The lower that rate is, the better. It's not as huge a ranking factor as some people will say it is, but it is a factor, and it may not be a ranking factor at all, but it's still important, right? You don't want people hitting your site and then immediately leaving in most cases, unless they're just looking for a quick answer like what time does this movie play or something like that. Domain age is important. It's again beyond the scope of this training, but getting an expired domain can help with that. But in general, unfortunately, it's not a factor you can usually control, but an older domain has a slight advantage in that way. Things that build trust are links. So links build trust. The anchor text that you put into the link builds relevance. So if you're linking from one site over to your pizza site, and by putting the anchor text as New York Pizza or Pizza New York, that tells Google that the site that this link is pointing to is about Pizza New York. Now, there's an art to this, and you can go overboard with it, and there's different types, and we'll get into that and other things, but that's just one of the major factors there. And then the number of links, again, this is misleading to say the number of links because you could blast 1 million links and that wouldn't be good, but you can only do one and that wouldn't be good also. It depends on the quality of them and so on, but the number of links is a factor. Next up is authority. Authority, again, I don't mean a metric from a third-party tool when I say authority. The tool Moz that's listed there has a metric called domain authority, and I feel like that confuses a lot of people, but I do not mean domain authority when I say authority. The authority of your domain is the number of the links, the link power and the quality of the links pointing to it, but also the amount of content that you have around that topic to prove that you're an authority around that particular topic. Again, all the third-party tools have a metric for authority, and they're great for getting an idea. If you stick with one tool, then you'll kind of get an idea of what that tool says for authority, but those are easily manipulated. So don't give them much weight. Just learn to build sites that are authorities at what they talk about. Social media profiles, you want to be active on these pages. Just, you don't have to build a whole social media empire, but having, a Facebook, a Twitter, a YouTube, and an Instagram or whatever, a Pinterest about your site, and just posting content from your site back to your site regularly will help it with Google ranking. This is a trust signal, and it's important. Bounce rate we talked about, but it's a measure of how many people look at your page and then immediately leave. Obviously, we want that to be low because we want people to stay on our site and do what we need them to do. If Google gets the idea that people are instantly leaving pages across your domain, that's not what you're looking for. So that means that you're not providing the searcher with what they need. And Google's goal, at least in theory, is to serve people the type of content that they want. That will get people to use their search engine more often. So if people are looking at your content and saying, this isn't what I want, and leaving your site, Google may consider demoting that in search ranking because you are not providing their users what they want from their product. And your bounce rate, again, depends on your content, usability, design, and things like that. And there are cases where this isn't true. Like I said, if your site is about how to find out what time a movie is playing, and you go and they search for that, and like The Avengers is playing at 7 and it says that right at the top, okay, they've got the information. It makes sense for them to leave. But in most cases, that's not going to be the case. Another tip for you is you should aim to format your content to give users something to do when they land there. And this is usually achieved by a call to action. So for example, you might have a button that reveals a fact, or you might have a video for them to watch, or something that is right there at the top that gets them to do something right away. That way they're on your page and your bounce rate lowers. Again, some other things, domain age, this isn't something you can really control unless you use an expired domain or an aged domain that you purchased rather than a brand new one. And then links, again, are probably the most important ranking signal. So you want a decent number of high quality, relevant links. Again, links are a whole subject unto themselves. So, we could go into that for quite a bit. But that's kind of the gist is relevance, power, and the right amount without going overboard, using the right anchor text. Let's talk a little bit about more about trust and links. If links are coming from low quality sites with AI content or just generated gibberish content, Google isn't going to think they're good links. It may not give you credit for them at all. It may discredit you, but most likely what they're going to do is just ignore them. So you've wasted that time and that effort. But if you have links from authoritative sites where the content offers real value to the users, the links make sense, then you not only won't you face penalties, but you'll get benefits from those. And it's good to mix in a little bit of both types, low authority and high authority, because it just doesn't make sense for your site to only get good links. Anchor text, again, this is the text that is written on the page that contains the link. And this is an important ranking factor. So you want to use your most powerful links for your most important anchor text, and that will help push you the ranking for those terms. But you also can't go overboard with that. You need to mix in what are called generic. That's stuff like see here, learn more, take a look, whatever. And then you can use non-keywords. So if you have a site in let's say Charlotte photographer, just putting photos or something of that nature, images, as a kind of a industry or non-branded, and then you can do branded, which is the name of your business. So if you own a McDonald's and you link with the term McDonald's, that's branded. And then you can use URL anchors, which is just not using an anchor at all and literally typing out the URL. Again, the number of links, you want quality over quantity. So it's important to understand what makes a link quality and what makes a link poor quality, and choosing the best quality you can in the amount that makes the most sense. Again, link building is a whole big topic unto itself that we could do and probably will do an entire video on, but this is kind of the gist of that. You may be wondering how you build links. Here are a few different ways you can go about it. So first of all, you want guest posting. Guest posting is where somebody else has a blog or a site, and you, either for free or you pay them or you give them, exchange things for them, exchange posts or whatever, you get a post on their site that links back to your page. The benefit for them is they get some good content. The benefit for you is you get a link. Now, technically, guest posting to improve rankings is against Google's guidelines, but we talked about that already, and how I don't want you to ignore those, but I don't want you to take those as the holy truth either. Then another approach is buying them. You can go to a site like Legiit.com and buy links from great quality vendors that will help move your rankings. This is the easiest way, in my opinion, because it's time consuming, and if you get it wrong, it's going to hurt your ranking. So it's probably best to exchange money for expertise, and that's kind of what would do that for you. So I would check out buying them at Legiit.com, and I can recommend some vendors for you if you would like. And then private blog networks are similar to guest posts, but they are sites that are owned either by you or by someone else, designed specifically for link building. This is actually one of the most powerful link building tactics, but there's a lot of bad information out there on it. So you do have to do it right. So I would either learn from this channel or other places how to properly either vet or build your own private blog network, or buy them from someone on Legiit.com. Some other tips for link building are: have the right strategy. Foundation links are another type of links. These are Web 2.0s, citations, social media profiles, and other types of free or low-cost links from around the internet. And these just help build out that entity that we talked about. And just like when you build a house, you're building it on a strong foundation. And that's kind of what you do with foundation links. You're building your site on a strong foundation. Next up are niche edits and guest posts. I already talked about guest posts. Niche edits are similar. They are a post on a site that exists already, and you just edit that post and find it a relevant post to your site and edit that post to have a link to your site on it. That way you get relevance and you get age, and sometimes you'll get power too. Press releases are another great tool for link building. This is where you write a press release in the traditional sense, and then it gets submitted via a service on Legiit.com or elsewhere to various news sites throughout the country and world. And this passes on relevance, trust, and power to your site. And it can help you diversify your anchors as well. And then mix in some social shares and signals with your link building. Don't try to take shortcuts. Link building is important and you need to get it right. And then the other things to consider are internal links. This is super powerful. Internal links are links from one page on your website to another page on your website. And they really help Google crawl through the site. Remember we talked about the spiders? That will help the spiders crawl the entire site and understand what it's about. And just like with external links, the anchor text plays a big role here in helping Google understand what the target page is about. And then if you do happen to screw this up, all is not lost. Google has what's called the Disavow Tool. This means that you take some links that are bad and through this tool, you tell Google, I don't want anything to do with these links. I didn't build them. They're bad. Don't consider them in your calculation. It's up to Google whether they listen to you or not. There is some debate on whether this is a good thing to do or not. The people that say that it's not are wrong. You need to do this when something bad has happened, but only when something bad has happened. So there are videos out there that can show you that as well. Social. If many users are sharing your content, Google is probably going to show it to more users because, again, their goal is to give people the best quality results possible so that they get people to use their search engine more often. And if people on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and so on are repeatedly sharing your content, that's going to tell Google, hey, this is something we should pay attention to because people like it. The way Google determines how valuable shares are to your SEO is kind of how you treat links. You want to mix quality and quantity. So spamming thousands and thousands and thousands of shares from irrelevant pages, not as effective as doing a few hundred or 1,000 from decent ones. The quality is important, but so is the quantity. And then you want that to drive clicks as well. Many sites will sell social shares and social signals, and those work really, really effectively. It's something I've been selling for quite some time, but you don't want to overdo it too. So just create a lot of content and be consistent with it and make it really easy. And leverage influencers if you can. If there's somebody in your industry that has a big following, see if you can get them to do what's called a shout out for you that will get your content shared a lot. That will help some with your Google ranking as well. Next up is a more, I don't want to say advanced, but more, I guess advanced is the only good word for it, topic, and that's Google's EAT, I'm going to say EAT for the rest of this portion of the presentation, guidelines. This is basically a range of factors that Google uses to determine how much expertise, authority, and trustworthiness you and your website have. And the better that is, the more you will rank. So Google wants to show its users experts so they know they can trust the information. The reason this in my opinion, the reason this came about is there were a lot of affiliate sites out there that were really good at SEO, but really didn't know what they were talking about as far as the content. And that can be really problematic, especially in specific industries like health, wealth, life, things like that. And your money, your life, basically. And it's important that you understand that because you want to be an authority and you don't want to pass on bad information to people anyway. That's unethical and it's not something you want to do. If somebody was looking for information about a disease, you shouldn't be the one advising them just because you're better at SEO. It should be someone that actually can help them. So that's why these factors were invented, and that's why you need to understand them. So you need to have information about you and the site on the site, as well as your other parts of your entity. And one of the best ways to improve your EAT score is by having information on who runs the site, or authorship, for lack of a better term. I say that because authorship used to be an actual thing. It's not necessarily anymore. But anyway, for example, Google wouldn't want to show a result from a site that isn't an expert, like I said, on a health keyword that could end up, literally costing someone their life. And it's important that people that give out specific types of advice know what they're talking about, specifically in important topics and non-opinion based topics like health. So do proper research, give thorough explanations, and stick to your expertise. If you don't know what you're talking about, either learn about it or get out of that niche, because it's really inappropriate for you to give advice that could harm someone's life just to improve your Google ranking. So SEO marketing, this is kind of the summary. Black hat versus white hat. Again, this is just, I wouldn't put a lot of thought into this, but white hat is perceived as the safer option. Neither of them is right or wrong. Just do things that get results and are ethical. Don't hack other people's sites. Don't steal, don't copy, or don't do anything that you know is wrong or harmful to either your site and client or anybody else's, and you'll be fine. Don't let these terms intimidate you or dictate your decisions. I just mention it here because it's something you're going to hear a lot, and that's why I've covered it 2 or 3 times throughout the course of this presentation. Keyword research. Again, selecting the right keywords. It doesn't only come down to looking at volume and profitability, but it's also the competition and your ability to use those keywords to generate the outcome that you want. So use your favorite keyword research tool. Use audit.io to make sure those keywords have on-page that you can compete with and understand the on-page that we're going to be talking about again in a second. Make sure that they are long tail if possible. If not, if they're not long tail, make sure they are achievable for you. And again, in a perfect world, we'd want a lot of search volume, a low competition, and a high cost per click. But you have to find a balance between all of those, as well as your skill set, budget, and time. HTML and on-page. Again, your HTML tags are a very important factor to create your snippet and your story that you're telling Google about what your site is about. So they are one of the more important factors, and you want to get your meta title and your meta description, your heading tags and your alt tags to be right. Using tools like Yoast Seo or All-in-One SEO or Rank Math or SEO Press, there's quite a few of them, will really give you an advantage like this. And again, audit.io, which, again, full disclosure, is a tool that I own, but will tell you what's working for the top sites and give you some insight on how to structure your on-page for the keywords that you've chosen. We put these in this order because it kind of flows naturally that way. And then technical SEO, again, is about the structure and usability of your website. Make sure you aren't creating any problems for Google or its users, so they won't create any problems for you, meaning that the easier it is for Google to understand your site, it probably means it's going to be easier for people to understand your site. And that's kind of the recipe that makes sure all of this works. That includes having a fast website, an SSL certificate, and just get a technical SEO audit from Google Search Console, Sitebulb, Screaming Frog, Google or Legiit's dashboard, or whatever. And that will give you an advantage. Do as much of the things in that as you can without going insanely overboard, because they give you a lot of things that will contradict each other. Not a lot, but they will give you things that contradict each other. So bear that in mind. But get this right and you'll have a huge advantage over everyone else. Then we talked about links. Link building, regardless of what anybody tells you, is absolutely essential to successful SEO because it's the most important ranking factor. So get a good mix of links with different levels of power, different do follow and no follow attributes, which we didn't talk about, but is basically a suggestion to Google on whether they should follow that link to its target or not. Get different levels of authority, get as many relevant ones as you can, and choose anchor text that makes sense, but without going overboard with the quantity. So that's that. Social, make it easy as possible for users to share your content. Use tools that will allow them to one-click share it if possible. Create pieces of content that are naturally shareable, like infographics and things like that. And just make sure that your stuff is getting shared, because it's a signal to Google that your stuff is getting shared, so they should serve that content to their users, because that means that it's something that people are interested in and they want to win the popularity contest for people's attention just like everyone else, because their job is to get people to search more and use their platform more. And by making sure that your content is socially shared, you give yourself an advantage in that way. EAT or EAT, show Google that you are an expert in the information that you are talking about. Make it easy to find, make it yourself and your website an authority, and make sure that the content you are providing gives actual useful information that's accurate and will benefit people and won't harm them, especially in sensitive niches like health, wealth, and so on. Some more important questions. What does SEO stand for in marketing? SEO, again, stands for search engine optimization. That means taking your website or other property and optimizing it so it shows up higher in search results, so you'll get more traffic from people looking for the topics that your website is about. Search engine optimization is what it stands for, and that's what you're doing. You're optimizing for search engines. What's the difference between off-page and on-page SEO? On-page is literally what you do on the page, what you do on your website. The on-page, the HTML, the technical SEO, and so on. Off-page is everything that doesn't take place on your website, including the link building, the social, and things of that nature. So it's important to understand the difference between the two, even though they both fall under the SEO umbrella. The on-page is going to be it's going to be the foundation of your work. The off-page is probably the most important factor. So you need to understand both of them and their role and get both of them as right as you can so you have the best chance of succeeding in optimizing your site to get the most traffic, to get the most results, and have the most success. Some more FAQs. What's the best way to learn SEO? I recommend watching this channel and just going through the different series. This video should give you a great overview. There's a full SEO 101 video and series on the channel as well. And if you want to take it to the next level, check out Superstar SEO Academy. That's my SEO training course. It's really, really inexpensive. And it's been out for, at this point, nearly 5 years. And we continue to add to it and grow it. But there's other great courses out there as well if you find something that suits you. But basically start with free training like this. Implement things on your own, learn from them, and then when you get to a point where you can't get any further on your own, then you want to invest in some training to take you to that next level. How much does SEO cost? In theory, it's free, but it takes a lot of time to implement, and a lot of what you do is going to cost you money if you want to do it in the most efficient way possible. So you can hire an SEO agency where you can pay anywhere from $500 a month to more than $10,000 per month. It really just depends on the difficulty of what you're trying to do and the competition and a lot of things like that. So there's no one answer to how much it costs. It can cost anywhere from $0 to hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. But the answer to the question, how much does SEO cost, isn't really something that can be answered with one static answer. It's the most popular answer in SEO, and it depends. Can I rank a website without SEO? I mean, in theory, sometimes if you have a good website like that's aged and already has like powerful links coming to it that you didn't build and you just buy an expired domain, sure, it's possible. But those are accidents when that happens. So if you happen to stumble on a keyword that nobody else is optimized for, sure, you can rank without it. But I wouldn't count on it. I would plan on having to do SEO if you want to get traffic from search. Some other questions are, how can I rank faster? You can put out lots of content with supporting pages for the main pages you want to rank. So if you have your pizza in New York example, you can build 5 supporting pages to that. One about pizza, one about New York, one about things to do in New York, and 2 other relevant topics. Point them all to that page, and that will help. That takes a lot of time, of course, but I mean, it takes a lot of effort. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of time, but it's worth it. Promote your content on social media. Ultimately, SEO is about traffic, and most social media sites are a type of search engine themselves. So the principles that apply here will apply there. And like I mentioned several times in this training, if you using social to help your Google ranking is a factor as well. Link to your content. Not only do links help with improving your ranking, but they will also help with getting traffic, right? Like if it's on if you do a guest post on a site that's got a lot of people coming to it, they will click the links on that post and go to your site. So that's another way to get ranking faster, is build some links on high traffic sites. Ensure you don't have any technical SEO issues. If you can nail this from the start, you're really off to the races. And then target those long tail keywords we talked about. Don't let the fact that a keyword that you think makes sense for your site but shows 0 monthly searches discourage you from doing it, because you can still pick it up. And I've never been able to prove this through data, but I've always believed that the more ranking keywords you can get, the more likely you are to get more keywords to rank, because it'll say Google will understand that they've already rewarded the site and trust it, and will continue to build that trust. So maybe you have to scale up from lower difficulty long tail keywords to getting into more. So that's just another thing. Some final thoughts. That's it, really. I mean, I hope this was a really long video. It's one of the longest I've ever made that I didn't do live. And it's kind of I hope it's a complete guide on SEO marketing, search engine optimization marketing. It gives you all the basics, understand all the essential concepts behind SEO, and that you now have at least a good overview of how to understand SEO and where to get started and what some of the different terms and things mean. Just make sure you're patient, because this is not a quick process. It's not like ads where you turn the switch on, and in theory, people start seeing you right away. This is a long-term play, but it can take 6 months, a year, or more in some cases before you see results. But as long as you're creating content and building links and using your social and doing all the technical things and that we talked about, you'll succeed as long as you do them right. And the payoff is so worth it, because you have built something that will get traffic for years, if not decades, and can fuel your life and change your life the way it has for me. So spend your time learning this. I hope this guide was a great way to get you started and a great way to get you to understand SEO, the value of SEO, and some of the most common terms and things that you'll need to understand if you want to do it. So I thank you for watching all of this. I know it was long, but I hope it was worth it for you. If you want, do me a favor and click the like button, comment, and let me know your feedback, and then subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel. It really helps motivate me to put out more content like this that I hope people find helpful. So thank you for watching. Again, I'm going to jump back on camera here for just a second, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'll see you in a second. That was the presentation on what is SEO, an A to Z walkthrough of the entirety of SEO. Now, there's a lot of other things that we could go into on each of the different topics within SEO, and whatever those are and whatever ones you're confused on, leave that in the comments for me, and I'll do my best to answer them for you, or I'll direct you to resources where you can learn more, or I'll make new videos for it. But I hope that you found that beneficial. I really wanted to make it as broad and as in-depth as possible to help as many people as possible and cover as many important topics to help people understand SEO as possible. So like I said at the top of this video, my life has been greatly changed and forever improved because of SEO. And I just want to pass that on to you guys too. So I hope that you got some value from it. If you did, let me know that. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you thought there was something missing, let me know, and I'll get that together for you too. And if you did enjoy it and you want to leave a like or a comment or subscribe to this channel, it really does help me out and it inspires me to keep doing more of these. And if I'm being completely transparent, it helps with the YouTube algorithm too. So either way though, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it this far. Please do whatever you can with SEO and use it to change your life the way it's changed mine. Again, my name is Chris M. Walker. Come visit me at Legiit.com and I'll be happy to help you with anything that you need there as well. So I appreciate you. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. And one more time, please click that subscribe button. I'll see you again soon. Peace.